everybody! Today I have a book to read to you guys. It's called The Little House by Virginia Lee Burton. Once upon a time, there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house, and she was strong and well built. The man who built her so well said, "This little house shall never be sold for gold or silver, and she will live to see our great-great-grandchildren's great-great-grandchildren living in her." The little house was very happy as she sat on the hill and watched the countryside around her. She watched the sunrise in the morning and she watched the sunset in the evening. Day followed day, each one a little different from the one before, but the little house stayed just the same. In the night, she watched the moon grow from a thin new moon to a full moon, then back again to the thin old moon. And when there was no moon, she watched the stars. Way off in the distance, she could see the light of the city. The little house was curious about the city and wondered what it would be like to live there. So what does the little house like to see at night? She likes to see the stars and the moon. Do you guys see the stars and moon where you guys live? Time passed quickly for the little house as she watched the countryside slowly change with the season. In the spring, when the day grew longer and the sun warmer, she waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green. She watched the bud on the tree swell and the apple tree burst into blossom. She watched the children play in the brook. Now, this is springtime. And in springtime, that's when they start, the farmers start planting. And you see these rows right here, they're planting apple trees. And the little house is in the countryside. Because in the countryside, there's a lot of lands and grass and trees. In the long summer days, she sat in the sun and watched the tree cover themselves with leaves and the white daisy cover the hill. She watched the garden grow and she watched the apple turn red and ripen. And she watched the children swim in the pool. And this is the summertime. And see the grass is green and the trees that they're planting is starting to grow. And you see this is a carriage. It's what people use at the time because they don't have any cars. So the horse will pull the carriage and take them where they need to go. In the fall, when the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she watched the first frost turn leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apple picked. She watched the children going back to school. And this is fall time because the leaves are starting, the leaves in the tree and the grass are turning yellow, brown, and orange. And it will be fall soon. So I want you guys to look out the window and see if the trees are turning colors yet. In the winter, when the nights were long and the days short, and the countryside covered with snow, she watched her children coasting and skating. Year followed year, the apples grew old and new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city, and now at night, the lights of the city seem brighter and closer. And this is winter time, and you see they have snow. The snow is covering where the grass used to be. Is there snow in Merced? No, there's no snow in Merced because it's not cold enough to have snow. But if you go up in the mountain in the winter time, you will see snow. Have any of you guys seen snow? One day, the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the winding country road. Pretty soon, there were more of them on the road and few carriages pulling by horses. Pretty soon, along came some surveyor and surveyed a line in front of the little house. Pretty soon, along came a steam shovel and dug a road through the hill covered with daisies. Then some truck came and dumped big stones on the road. Then some trucks with little stones. Then some truck with tars and sand. And finally a steamroller came and rolled it all smooth and the road was done. You see all these machines? They're making a road. Because before the road was, it was just dirt road. So now they're putting pavement on the road. See these trucks right here? They're pouring dirt onto the road. And this one right here is putting in tar. And this right here is a steamroller and it's going over the tar to make it flat. And they're making a road. Now the little house watched the truck and automobiles going back and forth to the city. Gasoline station, roadside stand, and small houses. follow the new roads. Everyone and everything move much faster now than before. Remember before they have carriages? Now they have cars and they have gas stations. And now look, they're starting to have more, they're starting to build more houses. Because before it was just land, and they have, and they're growing apple trees, but now they're getting rid of the apple trees and they're building more houses. More roads were made and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses, apartment houses and tenant houses. Schools, stores, and garages spread all over the land and crowd around the little house. No one wants to live in her and take care of her anymore. She couldn't be sold for gold or silver, so she just stayed there and watched. Everything is changing all around the little house, and they're building apartments. See these apartments? And there's no more grass and no more trees. It's just apartments. They have many rooms in the apartments, and that means more family can move in. And then for some apartments, on the first floor, it's a store. See, this one is the first floor for this apartment is a store, and for this one right here. Now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. Now the lights of the city were bright and very close, and the street lights shone all night. This must be living in the city, thought the little house, and didn't know whether she liked it or not. She missed the feel of the daisy and the apple tree dancing in the moonlight. So why couldn't the little house see the stars anymore? It's because they have street lights that shine all night, so it blocks the stars, so she can't see the moon or the stars anymore. And do you think she missed seeing the stars and moon? Pretty soon, there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house. They went back and forth all day and part of the night. Everyone seemed to be very busy, and everyone seemed to be in a hurry. This right here is a trolley car. And it's like a bus, but it runs on a track, and it has a wire that's connected to the trolley. And it will take people, it's like a bus, it will take them to where they want to go. And everything is changing, and the little house is still stays the same, and no one wants to live in her, so no one's taking care of her. Pretty soon there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The air was filled with dust and smoke, and the noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It all seemed about the same. Do you think the little house likes staying where she is? And is she still in the country? I think now she's in the city, because they're starting to build houses and stores all around her. So I think she's in the city now. She's no longer in the country. Pretty soon there was a subway going back and forth underneath the little house, and she couldn't see it. She couldn't see it, but she can feel and hear it. People were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. They hurried without a glance. Now they have subway. And subway is like a train, but it goes underground. Pretty soon, they torn down the apartment houses and tenant houses around the little house and started digging big cellar on each side. The steam shovel dug down 3-story on one side and 4-story on the other. Pretty soon, they start building up. They build up 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other. And look at all the machines, all the equipment that they need to build these buildings right here. Now the little house only saw the sun at noon and didn't see the moon or stars at night at all, because the lights of the city were too bright. She didn't like living in the city. At night, she used to dream of the country and the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty, her windows were broken, and her shutter hung quickly. She looked shabby, though she was just as good a house as ever underneath. Look at the little house. Does she look happy? I don't think she's like living in the city. And look at these buildings right on the side. They're very tall buildings. And there's lights everywhere, so she can't see the stars and moon anymore. Then one fine morning in spring, along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but she didn't hurry by. There was something about the little house that made her stop and look again. She said to her husband, "This little house looked just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house was way out in the country on a hill covered with daisy and apple trees growing around." They found out it was the very same house, so she went to the mover to see if the little house could be moved. The mover looked the little house all over and said, "Sure, this little house is as good as ever. She's built so well she could be moved anywhere." So they jacked up the little house and put her on wheel. The traffic was held up for hours as they slowly moved her out of the city. Where do you think they're taking the little house? Do you think she'll like where she's going? At first, the little house was frightened, but after she got used to it, she rather liked it. They rolled along the big road and they rolled along the little road until they were way out in the country. When the little house saw the green grass and heard the birds singing, she didn't feel sad anymore. They went along and along, but they couldn't seem to find the right place. They tried the little house here, they tried her there. Finally, they saw a little hill in the middle of the field and the apple tree growing around. "There," said the great-great-granddaughter, "that's just the place." "Yes, it is," said the little house to herself. A cellar was dug on top of the hill, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. Look, they're taking the little house out of the city into the country. The window and shutter were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. As the little house settled down on her new foundation, she smiled happily. Once again she can watch the sun and moon and stars. Once again she can watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. Once again she was lived in and taken care of. Look at the little house. Is she happy where she's at right now? Yeah, she likes where she is because she's in the country where there's grass and trees, and she can hear the bird and see the season change and watch the sunrise and the moon and stars. Never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. A new moon was coming up. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. Now she can see the moon and the stars again, and she's happy. So where you guys live, are you guys in the city or in the country? I'll see you guys next time. Bye.